Hi again. Continuing with the series on the British Armed Police, and we come to a book written by an officer who served in a provincial force, and it's the only one in the series that is other than London, the Met. And the force was Manchester, and it's this book, Gun Law, fighting Britain's deadliest gangs inside an elite police firearms squad by Andy Hailwood. And Andy Hailwood joined the police in Manchester, GMP, Greater Manchester Police, and worked on the division. And during that time, he was deployed as part of mutual support to Merseyside for the Tochteth riots in 1981, when there were really severe riots and arson in the Tochteth area. He talks about that. And then he applies to join the Tactical Aid Group, which is a department which really is dedicated to public order, to major incidents, to supplying support to other police activities, and provides a mobile reserve of officers who can be deployed in various emergency situations. And they also have a firearms capability. So he joins Tactical Aid Group, and immediately it's a lot of banter, and it's really kind of old style policing. I'll just quote a little bit. First of all, he talks about how he got into it, and he had to be recommended, and it was that kind of thing. And basically, one of the reasons they wanted him was they needed a decent rugby player for their team, and he was recommended for that. To start with, you were treated with contempt by your peers. You bought the brews, you drove, you did the menial task, and more important, you kept your mouth shut. It didn't matter who you were or how good you'd been on your division, you had to prove yourself again, and the chance to do that would never be far away. So it's that kind of culture that produces esprit de corps and produces guys who've got each other's back and that kind of thing. One of the things that he learned, and if you read the book, he'll talk about it, is van fighting, which is quite an amusing part of the book. So he has to go through firearms training. They do a lot of different explosive recognition, all sorts of things. Public order, obviously. Goes to the firearms course, which is a 10-day course, but basically revolver and some shotgun work. And from then on, is deployed with Tactical Aid Group in a lot of different activities. And we'll just talk a little bit about that. They had a particular way of doing things. It's a chat. They were called the Manchester Cowboys. Manchester had developed a rapid entry method of doing raids. They'd sent a group of their instructors to Hereford to train with the regiment and come back with this method of doing very fast and dynamic entries into buildings. The specialised entry they taught became known as a fast entry, today known as dynamic entry. Over the years, this became more specialised, and I pride myself on being one of the instructors who developed it into a credible and effective technique. Other forces nicknamed GMP firearms team the Manchester Cowboys due to this aggressive, intimidating tactic. I would attend seminars, visit other forces, receive visits from outside agencies, and listen to criticism about the quick entry technique and other GMP tactics. So quite interesting that at that time, in the 80s, it was regarded as something of maybe too aggressive by many police forces. He then goes on to become a firearms instructor and joins the firearms department, which was called VO8 in those days. And again, he talks about tactics. I'll just get the page. He's got strong opinions, and it's well worth talking about. A couple of colleagues and I still had concerns about our tactical capability. The option of entering target properties, either using slow or rapid entry, was coming together and we felt confident in them. I spent some time perfecting my recce techniques and was using that in the planning of operations. Briefings were becoming crucial. The days of quickly relating the brief facts of an incident and then attempting arrest were a thing of the past. So he goes on to talk about the reconnaissance, the terminology, etc. And there was quite a resistance by the old guard to this kind of thing. But it all culminates when 4 of the guys, including Andy, are sent down to Surrey to do some very specialised training with their firearms department, which was headed by a chap who had been in special forces. And he takes them through hostage rescue and vehicle interception tactics. It's a very intense, short course, but very intense. And he's got lots of video material there. They make use of it, make copies, bring back a lot to Manchester. And one of the things that Andy Hailwood starts working on is putting together a tactical approach to vehicle interception. And he distills all this knowledge into what's now called a hard stop. Presents it to a group from the firearms department and others, and immediately a couple of the old guard storm out. They say the tactic is dangerous, even though they didn't have any tactical alternatives themselves. He then enlists the support of the surveillance people, the dedicated surveillance unit, and they work together on the tactic and make it a cohesive whole where the firearms and the surveillance people each know what the other's doing, and it becomes a usable tactic. And eventually it does spread into other police forces. So that was quite a very, very interesting part of the book. Another thing, they deployed to Blackpool for one of the political party conferences, and just found the working with the Lancashire counterparts was an absolute shambles. The equipment and the planning and operation was dreadful. On a bank robbery operation, he is injured. He takes a fall from a roof, and that plagues him for the rest of his career. There's a time when he is forced to change to a different department due to a policy known as tenure. This was brought in, I don't know why, by certain very senior officers. It rears its head in another book we'll be talking about, but it's the idea of taking people from very specialised jobs where they've built up the experience, the knowledge, the skills, and moving them into something else. The reason being, who knows? It's someone's great idea. So he does that, but then comes back into firearms training as an instructor, and he's asked to put together the course for they just started the ARVs in Manchester, armed response vehicles, and he creates a 10-day course. At the end of the book, he has put officer, he's led a hostage rescue course, and he's put in spring of 1999, I ran a 4-week hostage rescue course with some very experienced instructors. The course was for 16 officers and was pass or fail. After the intensive 4 weeks, only 2 managed to pass. As this book goes to print, God help anyone who was taken hostage in GMP. So he has some thoughts on that. It's not in the book, but Manchester has suffered a couple of terrible incidents. They had a firearms officer killed by another firearms officer in a training exercise by mixing lethal ammunition in with the training scenario. And they also shot an unarmed guy in a car, and the circumstances of that have never really been adequately explained, why they did it. So it seems that Andy Hailwood was right in his predictions that the standards did drop. Really great book, written from the inside, usual police humour, highly readable, and a really good inside view into policing in a very dangerous city. Manchester was plagued by crime. There were massive crimes, the gangs, the Cheetham Hill, the Gooch, all those areas. They all had their own gangs, and they were all rivals in the drug wars. Certain amount of terrorism, and then just the usual types of armed crime that goes on. So really, it is at the sharp end, and it's a great book.